Edward S. Brown began Zen practice in cooking in 1965 and was ordained as a priest by Shunryu Suzuki Roshi in 1971. His teaching style is both lighthearted and penetrating, incorporating poetry and storytelling. Author of several cookbooks, including the Tassajara Bread Book, he is also the editor of Not Always So, a book of Zen lectures by Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, published in 2002. In 1980s, he did extensive Vipassana practice as well as several years of yoga. More recently, he has begun leading workshops on liberation through handwriting and mindfulness touch, and taken up the practice of Qigong. Don't know my pronunciation there. Additionally, he has become a student of energy awareness. A critically acclaimed movie, How to Cook Your Life, featuring Edward, premiered in February 2007. The complete Tassajara Cookbook, a collection of his writings, was published in September 2009. More recently, No Recipe came out in 2018, and The Most Important Point, a collection of his lectures, was published in 2019. Edward is the head priest of the Peaceful Sea Sangha in Fairfax, California. Website is www.peacefulsea.org. And I am going to switch the highlighted screen to you, Edward. Feel free to take it away. And we believe you're on mute at the moment.
Okay, now you can hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And anyway, my feeling is thank you for being here. So we obviously have the question of where here is, and apparently here is where you are. And at the same time, it's where I am. So there's not just a one, and yet there's a one, isn't there? Because I'm here and you're here, and we're here together. I'm honored and grateful to be able to share a talk with you, some of you in Atlanta. I've never been to Atlanta, so a virtual visit. There's been, various, for a while I had a title for this talk and then the title disappeared. So now this is, like a TV show or something, Ed Brown Live, or, Face to Face with Ed Brown. If we were Zen, we could say face to face. I expect we will meet each other. I do want to say a little bit about my talk or how I talk. There's two kinds of language that we use, or more, but I'm going to limit it to two. One kind of talk is, and a lot of our talk is, if you go to school, I went to college for a year. I was at Antioch College in Ohio, and I wrote a paper about alienation and anxiety and what are the causes and the symptoms. And, you read books and you have all these ideas and you put the ideas together, and I got an A on my paper, and I felt just as alienated and anxious as I had before I worked on the paper. This is one kind of talk, which is I characterize as head talk. That's the realm of thinking. In the realm of thinking, you can think all kinds of things, and your life goes on somewhere. Somewhere, your life must be going on, and what's happening in your life, actually. aside from what you can talk about. So, excuse me, my talk today is not going to be that kind of talk. I'm not particularly adept at it. I'm not particularly good at it. I have friends to this day, after 40, 50 years of Zen, they still write down their whole talk because you want to be sure to say, the right thing and the thing that can stand the test of being written and then spoken. And you're going to say the right thing to all these people who assembled. I don't know whether I'm saying the right thing or the wrong thing. I'm trying to talk to each of you. I hope that makes sense to you. I want to talk to you. I don't want to just talk ideas. So idea talk, I think of as head to head. I could say things about Zen or form, emptiness, the Heart Sutra, Prajnaparamita. I could talk about all that, and you'd have some ideas, and we could toss around ideas. And I want to talk to you. So this is a different kind of talk, and I think of Zen as to meet this other world, to enter this other world of where you really live and what's really going on in your life, and not just what you think. So at the time I was in college, it happened that my brother was sending me Zen stories. And I had just written this paper on alienation and anxiety and gotten an A. And one of the Zen stories my brother sent, it was 1964. All the stories, there were two books on Zen in those days. Paul Reps's book, Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, and an Alan Watts book, I forget his book, The Art of Zen or something. And one of the stories said, a young man writes home to his mother, "Dear mother, I'm doing so well in school. I'm getting good grades. I'm writing great papers. I'm helping the other kids study. I love, son, signed your son." And he gets a letter back from his mom, and it says, "Dear son, I didn't raise you to be a walking dictionary. Why don't you go to the mountains and attain true realization?" And I thought, that's for me. The end of the school year came a month or two later, and I dropped out. And on the dropout form, it says reasons for leaving. Well, duh, to go to the mountains and attain true realization. I mean, of course. um, some of you will understand that, the Vietnam War was going on. So I had to, and if you were in school, you had a student deferment. So we all wondered, if you're not in school, how do you get out of the draft? Assuming you wanted to get out of the draft. Um, so just to fill you in on that, I applied to be a conscious objector and I was turned down. So then I applied for a deferment. I applied to be a Buddhist priest in the army. And they said, okay, we'll give you your conscious objector. So then at that time, I was at Tassajara, so I served my country for 2 years, practicing Zen at Tassajara. That's not what it was called on the form. I had a job with the U.S. Forest Service, but actually I was practicing Zen at Tassajara. Recently, I was remembering, when I started practicing Zen, my friends and family and people would say, "Well, meditation, what do you get out of it?" And there's some concern, especially from the parents, like, "What? You're not getting a college education? What? You're not starting on your career? What? You don't have a job? What? What do you get out of this?" And it's very hard to say. finally what we get out of anything. And is your life just about getting, what do you get out of it? And again, this is our two worlds. Because, we live in variously described as a materialistic society and, a patriarchy. And, in terms of patriarchies, we have those higher ups who then are, like the Spaniards went to Peru uh, and uh, and slaughtered thousands of Incas in one afternoon without losing any men, and then eventually had a huge room filled with silver and or gold. It was all for the honor of the King of Spain and for God. And so what you get out of it is rule over others and money. And it's going on still. So what do you get out of it? Because isn't that what life is about? Seeing what you can get out of your time here. So basically, I came to the answer: everything and nothing much. What you get out of it? Everything and nothing much. And of course, it only gets worse. Maybe some of you have discovered this. 57 years later now. What do you have to show for your practice? Well, everything and nothing much. I have a room here. This is my living room, but it's also a kind of sanctuary. And there's a few books out there, and you heard of bio. What does that bio have to do with me? It's talking about a fiction. And we say Ed Brown, and then we put these things next to that name, and we say, well, these things, go together. So I want to tell you a poem that says something about, the beginning, the middle, the end. What you get out of it. This is a poem by Rumi. I hope you don't mind if I bring in um, poets who aren't Zen teachers. And I hope you don't mind if this particular poem starts out, one night a man was crying out, Allah, Allah. You don't mind if I bring in Allah, Allah? Are we Zen people or um, so in Rumi's poem, it starts out, one night a man was crying out, Allah, Allah. His lips grew sweet with the praising. Then a cynic said, so I've heard you calling out, but have you ever gotten back a response? The man had no answer for this. He became confused and fell. He stopped praying and fell into a confused sleep. The man had no answer for this. He stopped praying and fell into a confused sleep. He dreamed he saw Kidder, the guide of souls, in the thick green foliage. Why did you stop? Because I never heard anything back. This longing you express is the return message. This longing you express is the return message. Your great desire draws you towards union. Your pure sadness that wants help is the secret cup. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. So you see here, I've got the outfit for being a Zen master. We don't know, but I'm also a love dog. Is that something to have aspired to? Is that something that just comes your way? How does our life unfold? And to what extent do we have much to say about where we end up and what kind of experiences we have? So one idea of a human life is you should set out and have goals. They told me in high school, you need to study and get a good grades here. Ed Brown, put that book away. You may be able to follow the class without, you know, other students. You're smarter than the other students. Now put that book away and set a good example for everybody. Sit there and be bored. That's what they told me in high school. Because you need to get a good grade and you need to help others get a good grade. And then you'll be able to buy a house and get a good job, get married, have a family, buy a house in the suburbs, right? And they weren't talking to me and my life. So there are all these pictures out in the world and that are in our family and in our culture. I set out to be a spiritual person. 30 years after my ordination, I was ordained September the 11th, 1971. Literally on my 30th anniversary of my ordination, 2001, the trade towers come down. I thought my Zen practice of 30 years was going to make a difference. And then, of course, uh, there was awe and whatever they called it, terror and awe and terror or something. No, let's bomb the heck out of Iraq and let's find those weapons of mass destruction which never could be found and people suffered. I don't know. So some of my friends said, well, Ed, think about how much worse it would have been if you hadn't been practicing Zen. What do we know about how things affect? And I'm a great believer in sitting. Because in sitting, you stop trying to figure out where you're getting, what you've gotten, what you need to do, what you need to get rid of to improve yourself, how you're going to fix everything, how it's going to come out all right. And isn't it strange? But in Zen practice, at some point, there are times when you're like, just do what you're told and everything will be okay. Just do what you're told and everything will be okay. So when do we get to be a grown-up? And when do we get to tell others? Why didn't I go from being one who's being told what to do to I get to be in the position of telling others? And they should do what I say, right? I don't know. So I'm going to shift the direction a little bit, or in the same direction, but in terms of who is Ed Brown? Who are any of you? Who am I? Who who um, So, and I have another Rumi poem about this. Do you want the poem now or after I talk a little bit? I'm going to do it a little bit after I talk and then talk a little bit more. But all right, so I just told you how I started practicing Zen, right? People say, how did you start practicing Zen? Well, I was in college and it didn't make sense to me. And my brother sent me a Zen story. And I said, yeah, I'm going to leave college to uh, uh, go to the mountains and attain true realization. And 2 years later, I was at Tassajara. The last year it was a resort. And then Zen Center bought Tassajara. And they asked me to be, and Zen Center asked me to be the cook. And suddenly at 21 years old, I was head chef, cooking for 70, 80 people in our practice period. And then we had, at the time, we also had a guest season. And we had two menus for the guests because it was the 60s and we weren't prepared to cook vegetarian food for the guests. So we cooked meat for the guests and vegetarian food for the students. So we cooked 6 meals a day. I didn't do very well at that job, but on the other hand, I did it. Um, and I established a culinary tradition which has since disappeared. And no one, there's very little recognition or memory of anyone ever having been the first tenzo at Tassajara. But nowadays, um, and again, just to fill you in here, in this room, 20 years ago, I would stand in the room sometimes and I need to back up my camera, but my arms would fly up like this. And I'd say to my hands, no, that's not what we're doing here today. If you wouldn't mind, you could, and my hands, I put my hands down by my sides and then they'd fly up again. Sweetheart, that's just, it's not needed. So what is this? This could be seen as stop, halt, what? Stop, halt, what? And then, or it could be seen as a startle reflex. So after a week or two of being in my room here at home, my room, my home, and my arms flying up and telling my hands, no, that's not what to do here. We're doing something else right now. And then my hands fly up and at some point I say, tell me about it. Tell me about it. What's this about? And my hands started feeling around. And pretty quickly I knew, oh, I'm back in the incubator. I was born 3 months premature. 3 weeks premature. I spent the first 3 weeks of my life in an incubator. What's that like? And then what is Zen practice like? In the incubator, you don't talk to anybody, nobody talks to you, you don't touch anybody, nobody touches you. So 20 years of Zen practice. I'm talking about the institutional Zen practice, 4 or 5 periods of meditation a day, lectures, sit cross-legged for the meals. For a lot of that time, at Page Street, the Zen Center, we sat at tables, but at Tassajara, a lot of meals we sat cross-legged, certainly during practice periods. It's a lot of sitting. Nobody touches you, you don't touch anybody. You have your own little cubicle, don't you? So, the regular view is, oh, you were born premature, then you practice 20 years of post-traumatic reenactment. Have you heard of post-traumatic reenactment? You redo what was done that is painful, And you can, and all the literature I've read say it's of no use. It doesn't help. Post-traumatic reenactment does not. I did it for 20 years. Well, I would know. It didn't change the wound. So, and then there's another view. If you read James Hillman, and now, or Robert Bly, Michael Mead, there's a whole litany of people who, Robert Bly wrote most famously Iron John. And you could also see then that first 3 weeks in the incubator, oh, that was my first Zen practice. I did my first Zen intensive straight out of the womb. In that case, you don't sit in your little cubicle, you lie in your little cubicle and your hands are in the air. Nobody talks to you, you don't talk to anybody, you don't touch anybody, nobody touches you. It must be good for something, right? It's life. The Zen teacher said, whatever you say, whatever you do, it's of no avail. And the student says, yes, but master, but not to say and not to do, that's of no avail either. And the teacher says, it's like planting flowers on a rock. And the student says, yes, you can't even insert a needle. Well, so I'm a Zen teacher. How did I get to be a Zen teacher? And then, of course, there's people who say, he's no Zen teacher. And they make a face, or he's no Zen teacher. If you take the high status position, then you sit up straight and you say, he's no Zen teacher. I'm the Zen teacher. And I know who's a Zen teacher and who's not a Zen teacher. He's no Zen teacher. And so what do we know? So some people see me as a Zen teacher. Other people can't relate. Other people tell me to go away. So I'm not in charge of the world, and I can't, I don't try to tell you what experience to have. I give a talk, and each of you gets to have your very own experience of you hearing me talk. You get to have your very own, your words. So just briefly, I'll tell you, when my second meditation intensive, when I was 3, my mother died. Pretty quickly, I was in an orphanage without my mother, without my father, and without my brother. And what do you do when something like this happens? You sit. So the first week or so, 10 days at the orphanage, I sat in a little rocking chair on the porch and just rocked all day. The good ladies at the orphanage called my father and said, we're not sure we can take him. He won't play with the other kids. I was the youngest and the smallest. So that was my second meditation intensive. What do you get out of this? What do you do? You see it through and then you decide to play. And then, one of the things I decided, since I was the smallest and the youngest and the smallest, I developed a very tough veneer. You're not going to mess with me, are you? You're not going to mess with me. I don't care how big you are. You don't mess with me. There's lingo for this in, the world of psychology. It's called psychopath. Some of us ended up, some of us developed real psychopath, and others of us developed this kind of cover psychopath. But if you look at pictures of me, a lot of them, it's a very intense person. When I started practicing Zen, I was very intense. I think we're ready for the Rumi poem now. It's called The Tavern. By the way, these I use Rumi poems. I use the versions by Coleman Barks, who of course is a Georgia native. Coleman is such a you would know people from Georgia. They can be very gracious, very friendly and charming. Coleman Barks, had a dream one night. He was, I think, in Kentucky or Tennessee, I forget. And he was sleeping above a river, and in his dream, a man appeared to him in the dream, and a lot of light. And the man said, "Coleman, I'm your teacher." It took him 2 years to meet the man. He went to visit a friend who taught at Rutgers, and one of the students, and had been sending Rumi poems to this friend, and the friend had been reading him in his law classes, and one of the students said, "Where are you getting these?" And the professor said, "Oh, well, I'm getting them from my friend Coleman Barks, who's in Georgia." And the student said, "Well, if he comes here, I want to meet him, and I have someone he should meet." So when Coleman went to visit his friend, the professor at Rutgers, the student was there, and I said, "You come meet this man." It was his teacher, the one he'd seen in a dream 2 years earlier. You don't get that out of books. You don't get that out of reading. You don't get that out of study. How do these things happen? We don't know. And Coleman Barks, you can see him on YouTube, and he said, at one point the State Department invited him to Afghanistan, and he was in Kabul, and he recited Rumi poems to them in English, and everybody in the room was saying the same poem to themselves in Farsi. And he said, "Can you imagine here, like if we had a Ministry of Culture?" Oh, do we have any culture here in America? He's he's very polite and very gracious about it. And the State Department invited him to Kabul. And he was friends with Robert Bly. And Robert said, "Coleman, take these Rumi poems need to be freed from their cages." So Coleman Barks put them into free verse, English free verse. The Tavern. All day I think about it. At night I say it. Where do we come from? Where do I come from? Where do I come from? What am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. Where do I come from? What am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere, I'm sure of that, and I intend to end up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern, and when we get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a strange bird from a distant continent, sitting in this aviary. I'm like a strange bird from a distant continent sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off. But who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? But who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? Who speaks words with my mouth? Who looks out from my eyes? What is the soul? I can't stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I'd be free. I could free myself from this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord. Whoever brought me here will have to take me home. This poetry I speak, I never know what I'm going to say. Outside the saying of it, I get very quiet and rarely speak at all. We have a huge barrel of wine and no cups, and that's okay with us. That's fine with us. Every morning we glow, and in the evening we glow again. They say there's no future for us, and they're right, which is fine with us. So it's a poem by Rumi, and Rumi is in the same century as Dogen, 13th century. And it's a wonderful line, who? Who hears words? Who hears my voice with these? Who hears words with my ears? Who speaks words with my mouth? Who? And that goes back in Zen. There was a whole period of time where who was the one of the fundamental koans. Who? Who is speaking? Who is feeling? Who is thinking? Who is sitting? And of course, one of the famous, there's various famous sayings about this, but, one, of course, is Bodhidharma and his disciple Weiko. I've studied Confucianism or Taoism for 20, 30 years, and my mind is still not at rest. Could you pacify it for me? And Bodhidharma says, bring me your mind, and I'll settle it for you. His disciple says, when I look for it, I can't find it. And Bodhidharma says, there, it's settled, isn't it? Oh, that just brings up so much, but, because mind, we tend to assume that there is such a thing as mind, and it can't be found. And the way you say, my mind is calm, quiet, peaceful, what you're talking about is not mind. It's the objects of mind. It's the things that are appearing and disappearing. And the appearance and disappearance of things is in mind. You look to one side and the mind shows you what's there. And you look at the other side and mind shows you what's there. And mind gives you thoughts and feelings, but mind can't be found. Anyway, the other story that's sort of stands out is I'm forgetting now. Was it the third and fourth ancestor? Maybe it was the fourth and fifth. Anyway, the student comes and the teacher they meet, and the teacher says, "Who is it? Who? Who are you?" He says, but in the Zen Chinese, it's usually translated Who is it that thus comes? Who are you? And it's not your bio, the book you've written. Who are you? And it's not your credentials. It's not your outfit or your gear. Who? Who is it that thus comes? And this student is, finally comes back 7 or 8 years later. I can't, even to call it something misses the mark. As soon as I call it something, I've missed the mark. Who are you? As soon as I say something, it misses the mark. And the teacher says something ridiculous like, well, it's about time you got it. Why didn't you say so sooner? I'd like to say, to come to a finish here, I'd like to say thank you. Thank each of you so much for your presence, for your, what in Zen is called a beginner's mind or way-seeking mind. There are hundreds of love dogs. One knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. So this is, Zen people tend to be a group of people who are giving their lives to be seeking, what in Zen is called, it isn't called like in Rumi union, it's called enlightenment. Meeting and being met, seeing and being seen. And connecting with, being available for connection. In the vernacular from Suzuki Roshi and others of my Japanese teachers, we sit with everything and to be ready for anything. Thank you so much. I think we have a few minutes still for questions or comments. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, we have. If you need to leave earlier, we understand. I'm gonna open the floor for those in the room and those on Zoom. I'm just changing the view on our screen. Thank you again, Ed. If anybody would like a comment or question for our guest speaker, Ed, in the room or on Zoom, please raise your hand and I'll try to call on you. Sensei.
I have absolutely no question.
Someone just said they had no question.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. All right. That's like planting flowers on a rock or not even inserting a needle.
We'll start calling you out by name. Oh, good, John.
John. Go ahead, John.
Welcome, Ed Brown. It's been a pleasure to coordinate with you and work through getting you here online. Thank you so much for coming. I don't have a question, just an observation. I truly enjoy the way you laugh so easily, so lightly, so pleasantly. I'd like to cultivate the practice personally of laughing more often in the same way that you laugh.
Well, you can cultivate the practice of laughing in the way John laughs. But just to say a word or two about that, as I mentioned in my talk, I'm not naturally smiling. And when I was a Zen student, I came across a quote from Tsongkhapa, the founder of Tibetan Buddhism. And he said, given that life is completely uncertain and unpredictable, and we never know what will happen, what will go wrong, or when our life will end, one might just as well burst out laughing. And I thought, oh, that's right. Why wouldn't you, if that's the case, why wouldn't you burst out laughing rather than, oh no, what's going to happen? And it also then reminds me of, a story about Suzuki Roshi, that one evening he said, life is basically impossible. Good night. The next day, there was a lecture or sometime there was any questions, and somebody said, Roshi, last night you said life is basically impossible. What are we going to do? And you do it every day. So is our situation impossible or what? And is that something to be sad about, scared about, or laugh about how impossible this life is? And of course, along with laughter, various times people suggest, well, you could have compassion for all those who are in this human predicament. Someone else?
And even non-humans, maybe. We got Ungan.
Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you so much for being here, but I'm afraid you've answered all the questions before they're asked. You've killed the questions.
Who just said that?
I'm down in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, Jacksonville. Oh, in Florida, really, Jacksonville.
Yeah. We're part of the Silent Thunder Order and Ellison Roshi and everything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a good friend, a student of mine who's from Jacksonville. He's now living in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area. And we just did Chukai. He sewed with another student of mine in Kingston off, on a ferry boat away from Seattle. And then they were both down here, and at the end of March, we did a Jukai.
Well, thank you again for your wonderful teaching.
You're welcome again. All the best.
We have a hand for Steve, and then I'll look at the room. Go ahead, Steve. You're on mute.
Is there somebody in the room who would like to go first?
We're waiting with bated something.
Okay, bated breath. Sensei, that I don't have a question either, except that I have your book, and could you autograph it, please? Thank you. It will be much more valuable now when I sell it.
Well, there's a debate about
Thank
that.
you for your teaching.
As long as it doesn't have your name in it, I can't put your name in it and have it be more valuable. If I just sign it, then it's more valuable. So
Thank you.
Through you, who is beyond any name. But this is, reminded me, interesting, Suzuki Roshi said, when you are you, Zen is Zen. And mostly we tend to think when I become Zen enough or learn it enough or have enough, great experiences to put next to my name or under my name, then I'll be worthy of Zen. Then I will be good enough to be Zen. So Suzuki Roshi would say in various ways, some of you are trying to be good Zen students. Why don't you be yourself? I'll get to know you better that way, rather than a good performing Zen student. What am I going to do? What are we going to do? Anyway, I have his picture on my altar there because I was fortunate enough to, Norman Fisher and other people at Zen Center asked me to edit Suzuki Roshi's talks. Can you see the picture of Suzuki Roshi up there?
Yes.
So, um, I aim to be my teacher's disciple. Suzuki Roshi, in that sense also, thank you for coming on, Steve, and Ungan, and Suzuki Roshi said that, when he met Ru Jing, his teacher in China, they, in about 5 minutes, Ru Jing said, the Dharma transmission is now complete. They recognized each other. Suzuki Roshi said, you try to meet someone who's as sincere as you are. And that sincerity in meeting is, you're not hiding. You show up.
Somebody want to show up?
Show up.
Show up.
Yeah, show up.
Show up.
Ed, while we're waiting a moment, I believe you have a few students from your Sangha present.
Yeah,
Perhaps they could step forward with maybe just a quick comment so that we could, first of all, thank you for coming. We really appreciate having you in our Sangha this morning. But second, and you got up much earlier than we did, would any of you be willing to make a comment just so that we could meet you a little better?
yeah. Who's gonna go first?
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Jeremy Levy, Yoon Shinji, and longtime student at the San Francisco Zen Center. I left about 4 years ago, and Ed's now one of my closest Dharma companions. He's the elder who in that community who's done the most for me since I left, and I have tremendous gratitude and respect for him and his teaching.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I'm going to call out one of our new members, Kit. She was at San Francisco Zen Center for some time. And she's a relative newbie who's just come today for the first time. So Kit, why don't you step forward and say something? You got to speak a little loud from back then.
Sure, I'll try to project. Yeah, thank you so much for your talk. I really love poetry and find it to be, one of the ways that I definitely connect with things more deeply. So you sharing those Rumi poems was, really spoke at least to me. So thank you. Yeah, I haven't practiced in many, many years since I lived in the Bay Area. I've practiced other forms of meditation and yoga and things like that. but have very fond memories of the Sunday morning service at the Zen Center. And yeah, it's wonderful to feel that connection in this sort of unexpected venue in Atlanta. So thank you.
I also thought of you because he talked about his birth. Do you want to talk about?
I'm also pregnant at the moment, which sparked a renewed interest in practice and community, and so
Get the incubator ready.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you can find the poem that's on the table there. It reminded me I have another poem for you that's more modern. I'm having Heather is going to look for it. It's a little piece of paper.
We have a poetry reading here every year, and Joseph here is Weissman is taking point on it this year. When we're going to do that in October.
Yeah, to align with the National Poetry Day, which the theme this year is refuge. So we thought, oh, that's a nice.
Oh, that's a good one for you guys. Yeah.
Maybe you can join us for a poetry reading.
I'd be delighted, of course. So here's another poem. It's called Death Poem 2014. It's by Nikos Leverance, who I met in Sacramento about 8 years ago. And he sent me this poem, and I just rediscovered it in the last week. Dear stranger, last night you appeared in a dream. What was I doing before you arrived? It felt like nothing extraordinary. As you approached, I could hear you laughing heartily with others. Was it joyous laughter or anxious? I couldn't tell. At the doorway, you said hello, and we all took a seat. Your companions fell silent as you spoke of many things. Had they heard it all before? And then, without prelude, came the tears. Sorrow, remorse, regret, frustration, fear, running deep, fully alive. What could I say? Don't you understand? We are all orphans living together in a home without rooms. We are all orphans living together in a room without room, in a home without room. We are all orphans living together in a home without rooms. Words, such clumsy creatures, become more opaque with each fitful breath. I hardly recall what was said before you abruptly left, remembering such a haphazard endeavor. Let your brief, jarring presence announce this timeless message. Sometimes tears are just enough. Thank you, dear friend. Thank you. It's time to say goodbye or finish up or something.
Yeah, we'll do a go around, see if anybody has any comments or questions in the room.
You're new. What's your name?
Wendy,
Wendy. How about this?
I wanted to know more about the rock and the needle analogy. Is that a Zen? Like, just want to know more about that. But
The rock and the needle?
yeah,
Flowers on a rock? Well,
yeah.
Was it growing flowers on a rock?
You plant the flowers on a rock and they don't necessarily do very well, but the flowers, are going to come and go, whether they're on the rock or in the ground. But, just in a simple way, things appear and disappear. Do you know what happened? A couple weeks ago, my daughter My beloved little girl, my baby. She just turned 50. that that flower has become a tree. and it's out of my, as kids are, each of us is, we have our own world and we live. And her daughter just became 13, became a teenager. But, as I said, I started a culinary tradition at Tassajara, which went on for years and then it disappeared.
What kind of tradition?
Culinary. I
Culinary.
was cook at Tassajara for, 2.5 years. And after that, we had there was and I wrote books about cooking. And, I don't know if anybody at the Zen Center ever looks at those books anymore because, they have their own ideas about what to do. So my tradition, my flowers.
I think we have your cookbook here.
Oh, in a place of honor. Yeah. And somebody was Steve, raised a cookbook. So there it
Wendy,
is.
Wendy also asked about the needle. Is that the Zazen Shen needle?
No,
Or is that
they said you can't even insert a needle. Reality. Finally, what we say about, the simple way to say it is, I like what the Zen teacher Muso Kokushi said. The reality, Zen is not about, the reality and Zen is not about promoting the pluses and, preventing the minuses. It's about the reality that underlies the pluses and the minuses. And that reality that underlies the pluses and minuses is impenetrable, or, cannot be described. The reality that underlies. And while we can do things that are positives or negatives, and we go through, but the point of Zen practice isn't to, it's to wake up. And our culture is more living in the world in a materialistic world. It's like, how do I get more? How do I prevent loss? How do I get more gain? And when you sit, you find out that, oh, can't be done. But we're trying.
You're new. Do you have something to add or question? You attracted a lot of newcomers for some reason.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
You have to speak up a little loud.
Well, I was coming here and I would like,
Can you hear Tom?
I can hear. I don't think I'm seeing the person, but that's okay.
You mind stepping forward? Next to you, young lady. You know who you are.
hi,
Oh, good morning.
I was just sitting here the whole time and I wanted something very resonating, resounding to me, and I really like what you said, to be heard, to hear, to be seen, and to see. So it's yin and yang. So it's both balancing each other. So that was powerful for me. So thank you.
Thank you. And what's your name?
Kim Tan.
Kim Khan?
Kim Tan.
Kim Tan.
Kim
Kim
Tan.
Khan. Kim Khan, yes. Thank you, Kim. All the best. Blessings. It's very interesting, the business of seeing and being seen, because, we keep trying to we want to meet somebody who sees us and meets us. and receives our being, and which is different than the world. The everyday world is like we're meeting a lot of judgments and assessments and directives. You know what you need to do. You know what's wrong with you. And I don't like this, and I like that, and fix yourself on for my benefit. Why don't you? So it's very rare that we meet somebody like, oh, good morning. How are you today? Tell me about it. How nice to see you. Thank you for being here. I try to do that, give a talk. And in that space, we have freedom, and we're shifting in the course of Zen practice from, well, what I want to say is, on one hand, we're looking for people outside who will see us and meet us and recognize my gifts, my blessing, my goodness, my good heart, and then we think they're not doing that because I am not that good. I'm not good enough. And so of course they're not seeing me, but they're rejecting me. And when I get to be good enough, they'll appreciate me and receive me. It's not the way it works. You want to meet somebody who can do that. But also, you see, it's in meditation, at some point you're like, oh, I guess I'm going to have to be that person. Does anybody care about me? I do. How are you, sweetheart? What's up with you? Oh, you're sad today. Oh, you're scared. Oh, you're anxious. Oh, you're worried. Oh, you're excited. Oh, you're delighted. Oh, you're happy. Oh, yeah. Nice to see you again. Nice to be here with you. Thank you. And you start relating to yourself with that kind of intimacy. Rather than, if you get sad, you might hear yourself saying, don't be sad. Don't be scared. Grow up. Stop being a baby. We all have our own litany of all the voices we've heard. And at some point you say to your critics, your judges, your inner voices, thank you for being here. I know you have my best wishes at heart. I've appreciated all you've had. There was a time in my life when I had no idea what to do, and I needed you to tell me what to do and what not to do. I have a question for you now, though. How old do you think I am now, today? How old do you think I am? You start asking your inner voices, and mine said, 7. And then you have to explain to your inner judges, your inner critic who's telling you, grow up, get over it, stop being a baby, stop whining, don't complain, be kind, be this, do this, don't do that. And do you think you ever can please those voices? You ask your voices, how old do you think I am? 7. Excuse me, my friends, but I'm 70. I'm 78, but when I did this, I was about 70. I'm 70. I want you to stop talking to me like I'm still 7. You've been so busy noticing what to do, what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing, and whether I'm doing what you say or not doing what you say, you haven't noticed that I've grown up. You haven't noticed that I have many more skills and capacities now than I had, and that you could help me figure out, you could help me know for myself what to do and what not to do, instead of just trying to find the right voices to listen to. There's the possibility of freedom, liberation. And part of that liberation is from all those judgments that you hear. And in meditation, they'll come up, I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway.
I think it's
Doesn't have to make sense. It's Zen.
Um,
Michael.
Michael. Michael's had his hand up for a while now.
Thank you so much for the talk today. I just wanted to make a quick comment. You know, you talked of Rumi, you read poetry by Rumi, and one of the poems you brought in Allah, and listening to you talk and listening to you read poetry, it does remind me that sometimes we are able to meet people who go beyond the four walls we call religiosity and penetrate a much deeper truth.
Yes.
It's beyond the conceptual things we like to name or the images we like to get entrapped in. So thank you much for that.
Thank you, Michael. And just one thing to say about that, you know, I don't, mostly the last poem I read, because I haven't memorized it yet, but when you memorize a poem, it's yours.
We have another newcomer, believe it or not, and she has a question. I don't even know her name.
So I've actually been here before. I came a few months, maybe it was like around February or January. My name is Owino. So I came in a little late today too, but sitting here, what resonated for me, hearing from you was your story about being an orphan, and just being sort of rocking in the chair. So I was born to a young mom in Kenya, and I sort of went through experiences, but sort of they've been wiped away from my memory. And just like 3 decades now, I experienced some traumatic events over the past few months. And it was almost like I went back to being a baby again, like everything was wiped out. And one of the things that really helped me sort of get grounding again was walking. Like, you know, walking in nature. Like I didn't know anything else, but that I needed to walk. So that was like very refreshing and just, you know, struck a chord for me to hear that story.
Thank you. And could you say your name again?
You know, AWINO.
I Alino?
Owino, A-W-I-N-O, Owino.
Yes, by all means. You know, many healing traditions mention walking, and of course in Buddhism there's various forms of walking meditation. And I've done a lot of Vipassana walking, and also Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a walking meditation where he says something like what you're walking was, go out and enjoy yourself. But walking is one of the most healing things we can do. And I find also sometimes if I'm upset around the house here, I go for a walk around the block. And even like 5 minute, even like 10-minute walk around the block, and I'm in a different space. And walking, we're connecting, as you say, with nature. And, you know, and as a general rule in practice, one is aiming to situate oneself in coherent space. And that situating yourself in coherent space is healing. And it's very coherent to be walking in nature. Nature is coherent. And ideally, when you come and sit, the room has a coherency to it. And you're sitting in that coherency. And over time, you learn to generate coherency. Thank you so much, and please continue. All the best.
We have one more hand from Lisa, and that's about noon. So Lisa, you have the last word, and thank you again, Ed, for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah. Lisa, did you want to say something?
Oh, sure. Thank you. I feel pressure now with the last word, but I'll just say what I was going to say. But I thank you so much for your talk. And I just wanted to share like what so resonated for me, which was very helpful today, helped me to sort of exhale, is the piece around liberation from judgments and the piece around freedom. And I realized in your talk how I spend so much time as a parent, as a person, as a friend, as a sister, as an employee, as a human, just feeling the need to be good and do things right. And your talk helped me give me a little space that maybe I don't always have to be good. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Lisa. Why don't I tell you one more poem, and then, you know, we can end on that, because, you know, Mary Oliver's most famous poem, probably Wild Geese. You don't have to be good. You don't have to walk on your knees 100 miles across the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I'll tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and soft pebbles of rain are moving across the prairie, over the mountains and the forests. Meanwhile, the wild geese are flying high in the clear blue sky. Meanwhile, the wild geese are flying home again in the clear blue sky. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world calls to your imagination. Calls to you like the wild geese. Calls to you like the wild geese, over and over again, announcing your place in the family of things. The world calls to your imagination. As Ueno said, a walk. And sitting is the same. You make yourself at home here, and you befriend yourself. There's a saying in Buddhism: no one in the world, in the universe, is more deserving of your love than you yourself. And and sometimes we think, well, I'm not worthy of love. But more than anyone in the universe, you deserve your love. And you take care of you hold yourself. You take care of yourself. You sit with yourself and walk with yourself and sleep and eat and stand and move with you, with someone who has the feelings that you have and the thoughts that you have. And you wake up to this moment and to all the possibilities implicit in your life. Thank you so much. All the best. Blessings.
Thank you. Ed. Is there anything more that you would like to say before we do the 4 vows, before we do the Dharma closing verse?
4 vows.
We do the 4 vows 3 times. So if you don't get them the first time, you might get them the second or the third.
Calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting. That's what I left out. Oh, well, I can't lead the sentient beings are numberless. I remember that much.
Beings are numberless. I vow to freedom. The illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to freedom. The illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to freedom. The illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to freedom. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Thank you again, Ed.
Okay, thank you all of you. All the best. Take care of yourself.
Always here.
Sensei, before we close out, may I mention Donna?
Yes.
This morning is an excellent opportunity to give Donna to be passed along to our guest speaker. Giving Donna is one of our core practices of generosity that's central to the teachings of the Buddha. If you found this presentation helpful in some way, please consider making a small gift. Or if you'd like to indicate some support and affirmation for our guest speaker program, consider making a gift. 100% does go to the guest speaker. It can be done in several ways. There's a box inside the center there on location, as well as multiple methods available online at our website. We thank you for your generosity.
Thank you, John.
By the way, for those who don't know, John is taking point on our guest speaker program. So we will make sure that all the follow-up is correct on this. Thank you again, Ed. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.